Welcome back, everybody, to Hoops HD. This is the fourth of the and final of our quadcast of this evening. We are recording simultaneously, or maybe consecutively, I don't know, four podcasts. If you're looking for the American, A10, Mountain West, they're all up there. This is our West Coast Conference preview show. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, joined by David Griggs, John Sleek up here, David Dorman down below me, Matt Sikowski and John Titel to his sides. We got Michael Cha and Rocco Miller joining us from Bracketeer.org down in the bottom row. And we are on the West Coast Conference, which every year seems to start with Gonzaga. Although this year, maybe it starts with two teams because I've seen some people even picking Gonzaga to come in second here. But Titel, let me start off with you at the top of this conference and take your pick. Who do you want, the Zags or St. Mary?
Give me the Zags.
Go ahead.
I love Randy Bennett. And I think they're picked in the preseason poll to win St. Mary's by a very close 5-4 vote. So certainly wouldn't surprise me. But when you bring back not all the stars, but a lot of the stars, Anton Watson, the big man, you bring in the point guard Ryan Nembhard, and then you bring in a transfer from Wyoming, Graham Ike. I don't know if he's 100% after missing last year with a right leg injury, but even at 75%, I think he's still arguably one of the best big men in the conference. You should not bet against Mark Few because he owns this conference. I think it's theirs to lose. That being said, St. Mary's for real, and Gonzaga has a nice schedule this year. Maui Invitational, they could play several big-time teams. They play the Aztecs. They've made every NCAA tournament that was played since '99, so you can book them to make it again this year.
Yeah, Elite Eight last year for this team. Dorman, how about the Zags this year also? Life after Drew Timme, but as Titel mentioned, we've got Ryan Nembhard coming in.
Yeah, Nembhard's really good. Big time talent. Nembhard's brother was a Gonzaga player. He played for a Mark Few team, excuse me. He's really solid. And now his brother's coming to play up there. He brings a lot. He's going to bring an offensive set that he can handle the ball. He can bring the ball up. He's going to need to get his guys in places and in spots where he can get the offense to flow. This is going to sound crazy because going against Gonzaga is not smart, but I really like the St. Mary's team. I just think this is the year, if there ever was one, where they might have better talent actually, or talent right there. I think the St. Mary's team is just loaded and gels and play some really strong out-of-conference games, as Titel just mentioned. But with Mahaney, Marshallonis, Alex Dukas, and then they have a talented big in Saxon. I really like St. Mary's this year. I think they can pull off some of these upsets in these out-of-conference games, and I think they reverse it here. They take over where Gonzaga usually does and gets a top protected seed, and Gonzaga comes in second in the conference.
Yeah, Rocco, well, what about that? Is this the year that the St. Mary's does dethrone the Zags?
Well, last year, let's not forget, these two teams shared for the title, and St. Mary's won the tiebreaker and was actually the number one seed at the WCC tournament before getting completely ambushed in the championship game. By the way, Gonzaga has been to 26 consecutive WCC championship games, so they're going for 27 this year. Yeah, so I think last year they're pretty even. And, from St. Mary's perspective, losing Logan Johnson, I'm really curious to see how big of a difference it makes. He's clearly easily the best on-ball defender, athletic player that Randy Bennett's ever had, and definitely the best in the WCC last year. So he moves on. A lot of weight going over to Augustus Marshallonis, a guy I've loved since he got on campus, but he just hasn't taken on that big role yet. That's going to be his turn this time. But with Aiden Mahaney now going to be a regular starter, I watched some of their exhibition game last week against Hawaii when they just beat them by 40 plus on the road. Not that the exhibition matters. It's just kind of good to see the difference from last year to this year. Mahaney looks a little beefed up. Saxon's going to be a machine down low. Clearly, for me, I don't see enough on either side because Gonzaga, like Ike might be out for a while. He's had a foot injury. the off season. I have no idea how long that's going to last, but I have my doubts. And I also heard Gonzaga had to cancel a practice last week because two guys got a concussion. So Gonzaga is really going through some injury issues, and you can tell they've taken maybe a tiny step back since the Timmy teams. So I'm just going to go ahead and call another co-championship, Chad.
Co-championship.
Straddling the fence.
He's calling a tie, kissing your sister. Mike, what do you think? What do you think on this St. Mary's Gonzaga
Well, I straddled the
debate?
fence for the Mountain West when it's like 1-4, and I said 2 or 3. So, yeah, I saw that St. Mary's is the slight favorite, like 5-4, and in terms of the vote, it's very, very close. Like you could, splitting hairs, but I agree. You got to go with Gonzaga. You got to go with the proven commodity. I mean, St. Mary's. I wouldn't be surprised if they won the conference championship, but you got to go. The smart money is on Gonzaga. And it's basically Gonzaga up here, St. Mary's a notch below, and then everybody else.
Yeah, it's a very, very good assessment.
Talking about everybody else, in recent years, it's getting a little bit closer. Matt, what about Loyola Marymount? What about Stan Johnson's team this year?
I think that's where, they're probably not a tournament team, but I think they can take the place of BYU as a third good WCC team. And then a couple of real interesting transfers. You got Justice Hill, who from LSU, but then made his name at Murray State under Matt McMahon. Didn't go as well at LSU. That's why he's now at LMU. And the kid I'm really watching is Gonzaga transfer Dominic Harris. He was a 4-star top 100 recruit when Gonzaga got him. I thought because of their talent, it would take him a little bit of time, but never made the Gonzaga rotation. But I think he might break out at LMU.
All right. Slika, is there anyone else you're looking at it beyond the top 2 teams?
I think we have to go in Rocco's neighborhood because you have to look at the San Francisco Dons, who have become a perennial contender over the past 5 to 10 years. Not so much for winning the league, but at least getting into the top 4 right here. If you're looking at a couple transfers that they're going to be coming in, they're going to have Stefan Todorovich from Southern Methodist, Malik Thomas, who's going to be coming in from USC, and Mike Sherebajans, who's going to be coming in from Dayton, who gives them a little size in the front court. If we're talking about their schedule, they're going to have some decent road games coming up at Boise State, at Arizona State, and at Vanderbilt. And I think they're also going to have a home game against Grand Canyon in either South Carolina or DePaul. That's going to be part of the season opening tip-off in Phoenix. So actually, let me make a correction. I think the Grand Canyon game is also going to be in Phoenix as well as part of that 2-day event.
Yeah, Rocco. He mentioned you there, and the Dons. Khalil Shabazz, Tyrell Roberts, both gone though. I don't know that they have it this year. Do you?
Well, fortunately, I was able to go to practice last week, and I'll tell you, it's going to be an awesome offense. A lot of guys can score. Mongolian Mike, he's a bucket getter. I think Marcus Williams will take a big step forward. He actually, if you look at the last 10 to 12 games last year, he really started to play better, even though he was behind Shabazz and Roberts. Now Marcus Williams is the guy. And then you also bring in the Beasley brothers, and they're both ready to contribute. So I'm excited about those guys. I think the question is defense. I think Jonathan Mogbo is going to be the best defender. He's got something that the Dons haven't had. Square shoulders, 6'8", just looks like a great athlete coming in from Missouri State. Just rock solid defender. He's a guy you can count on to be in the starting lineup. So it's an interesting mix of guys. The Dons are much bigger. It's not this small team full of guards anymore. It could be you could do the lineups with Marcus Williams and a bunch of 6'8" guys, or you could go a little bit more mid-size. So Coach Gurlison's got a lot to work with, and it's going to be a pretty fun year, I think.
Dorman, Santa Clara had 23 wins last year, and the best player from last year is in the Bay Area, but on the Warriors roster and not on Santa Clara's roster.
Yeah, Brandon Podzimski, real stud, first round NBA draft pick. When you're dealing with Santa Clara school that doesn't get a lot of McDonald's All-Americans, it's hard to replace those type of kids. But why Brandon Podzinski became a first-round pick is because Herb Sendek is one of those coaches that gets so much out of non-McDonald's All-Americans, the 2 stars, the 3 stars. He just gets a lot out of good basketball players, and he makes them really, really good basketball players. He's great with the X and O's. I know he got ran out of NC State. He just couldn't get over the hump in the ACC. But I think Herb Sendek is a real good coach. I think he's got a decent team. Like I said, he's losing a lot. He's got a few coming back. He brought in a couple transfers in Jalen Benjamin and Adama Ball from Arizona. Didn't get a lot of time in Tucson. But because he's such a solid coach, I think this team can hang around the middle, 4 or 5 area after our top 2. And it's really a tribute to what Herb Sendek can do.
Griggs, you see anything about it from any of the other 4 teams we haven't discussed yet? Portland, Pacific, Pepperdine, San Diego.
In looking at it, no.
Titel, how about you? Anything on those 4 teams?
Nothing of note, Chad. I mean, if you want me to do something on Pacific, I mean, Leonard Perry has been there for a couple of years now. They haven't made the tournament in a decade. They're not going to. He was an assistant to Damon Stoudemire, so we get some credit for that, but not much else.
Yeah, I will give a shout to Pepperdine. Lorenzo Romar, the real good news, his team cannot finish in 10th place this year. There's only 9 teams in the league.
Mark Fuse, buddy, you're talking about there.
Actually, Rocco, I know you had a few thoughts on San Diego quickly before we move on, because I think you actually do like this team a little bit, even though I've seen them picked dead last in the conference by some people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would actually be the opposite. I think they are absolutely dead last. They did not do a darn thing in the portal. He's basically doing what Frank Martin's doing at UMass, but I would say even worse, because he's basically just replaced nearly everybody except for McKinney with freshmen. And in today's world of portal and the commitment that the top half of the WCC's made to being old and in contention for tournament bids, I think the San Diego team is completely outclassed by anybody in contention.
Yeah, okay.
Steve Levin behind the times, perhaps.
No, I think
they'll be at the end of that ladder.
If you want my honest opinion, I think he wants that job for as long as he can, and by starting with freshmen, that gives him something to tell the AD and last there for at least 4 years.
Yeah, except when all those freshmen start transferring out, because this is the new world that we're in.
Yeah. So we'll see how that plays out.
But I guess on that note, we've done this. I think about our quickest conference preview yet. But let me run through each of you now. Who's going to win the league? How many bids? And any other thoughts, Matt? Let me start with you.
Yeah, I'm going St. Mary's. I got right there. I think it's close, and they'll be like St. Mary's will be like a 4 seed, Gonzaga 5 seed, and then LMU will be like a 7 seed of the NIT.
Stalika.
I think this is going to be the year where you could probably pick St. Mary's to win the conference because of their experience coming in. Gonzaga, I don't think they have a star-studded freshman like a Jalen Suggs on their roster this year. Obviously, you can never count them out to win the West Coast Conference championship during the tournament either. But I don't see a team like San Francisco or LMU sneaking into that title game either. So I'm just going to stick with 2 bids here.
And we might get a consensus on this. Titel, how about you?
2-bid league, but I'm going to change from Gonzaga winning to a split championship per Rocco because I love it, frankly. I don't see any other team sniffing even second place, much less first. My final thought is actually on San Diego State, which I know is not a member of the WCC, but bear with me. So if you look at their schedule this year, BYU in November, St. Mary's in November, Gonzaga in December. Like, was this a message that they really wanted to join this conference or still do? I mean, BYU left, so maybe they're going to sneak right in. I don't know.
I don't know. I think maybe we're likely to see Gonzaga leave this league, but because there's been a lot of rumors of that. But who are we up to next? Mike?
2 bids. I pick Gonzaga to edge out St. Mary's.
Dorman.
It's cut and dry. This is cut and dry. This is not like the other conferences we're talking about. There's no gray area. This is clear cut.
I agree. I'm gonna go. St. Mary's to win the conference.
I'm going to personally go with. You guys have talked me into it. I'm going St. Mary's to win the conference regular season. The Zags will win the conference tournament, and it's a two-bid league. And they are both going to be protected seeds. That's how good I think these two teams are. They're both going to be in the top 4 seed lines. Rocco.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to put up a strong enough argument to go beyond 2 bids, at least at this point. But I do have a lot of high hopes for the next 3 of San Francisco, Santa Clara, and Loyola Marymount. Last year, the 2 teams at the top tied for first, and it wasn't just because they split the series. They both actually lost to LMU once, and that kept them in a tie. And that, I think, gives LMU a different degree of confidence, at least going into those matchups against the big dogs. So that's an interesting element. And I will say, I'll see Santa Clara practice tomorrow, but the fact that they handled UCLA in a scrimmage last week really has my attention. So I'm hearing great things about Johnny O'Neal. Nobody's talked about him yet. Transfer from American, shoots 40% from 3. Usually a guy from the Patriot League wouldn't make this kind of a jump. But I talked to an NBA scout about him. He's on an NBA scout's radar. He's on my radar.
All right. Griggs, you want to finish us off here?
Yeah, so Rocco's pick as a co-champion may have sounded a bit like a cop-out, but I don't think it was. In fact, it might actually be the most logical response. You have Gonzaga and St. Mary's that are protected seed caliber teams, and no one else minus maybe LMU, that's anywhere near the NIT. Last year, they each had 1 loss. This year, I think they'll each have 1 loss. And it would be to each other. I think they so overwhelm the rest of the league that it's really going to come down to the 2 games they play against each other that they could reasonably, even perhaps expectedly split on each other's home court. And then it comes down to who wins the conference tournament. I like Gonzaga to be a little bit better, I think, as far as the overall season goes and what they do in the NCAA tournament. But yeah, I think the 2 tie.
You see, I think Loyola Marymount steals a game from the Zags, and that's why the St. Mary's
really
gets
you think
season title, and that's what puts Loyola Marymount in the NIT.
Chad, you know what happened last year when LMU beat Gonzaga, right? It made them real angry. They ended up beating them by like 50 or 60 points in Thurston.
It's a new season. It's a new roster. On that note, I do want to thank everyone for joining us for all of these 4 podcasts. If you were looking for the American A10 or Mountain West, they're up there. Any other conferences beyond that, look up at the season preview tab. But on behalf of David Griggs, John Stalika, David Dorman, Matt Sikowski, John Titel, Michael Cha, Rocco Miller from Bracketeer.org, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again next week with, among other things, our Under the Radar preview, where we are going to hit every single conference and every single team that we have not hit yet. So if you are looking for in-depth coverage into Montana basketball or into,
we will have it.
I don't know who else is in those little leagues. St. Francis, Pennsylvania.
Really good. If you're looking for good under the radar teams, Drake's
all your Lemoyne coverage, all your Bellarmine coverage,
all your Lemoyne coverage. Yeah,
it's all coming. Vermont, we'll talk about them too.
EKU. It's all about EKU this year.
Yeah,
EKU, Mississippi Valley State. We're going to hit it. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Talk to you again next week.